Going on, everyone? So, two big things that have kind of stood out is LeBron James all of a sudden not caring so much about playing with Bronny, right? For years leading up to this moment, all we heard is that LeBron wants to play with Bronny. If you draft Bronny, you're probably going to get LeBron. That's LeBron's last goal, his last mission in life. That's all he wants to do, this, that, and the other. And now the time's here, and it's like, he doesn't really care, right? He wants Bronny to be his own man, right? Rich Paul's out here telling people, like, hey, drafting Bronny is not going to get you LeBron James, right? Bronny's paving his own path, right? And now it kind of becomes this completely different narrative, right? And look, I think a big part of that is the Rich Paul, LeBron, clutch, really trying to push and steer the narrative towards Bronny getting drafted to the Lakers, right? You kind of scare off all the other teams, all the teams that were willing to draft Bronny on the off chance that LeBron comes. Now you scare all those teams away. There might be a couple teams that are interested, but you kind of make a push to, your last little Hail Mary to kind of scare those teams away. You got a team like the Phoenix Suns, but outside of that, there hasn't been a ton of buzz that all these teams are lining up to draft Bronny, right? I think everyone knows that the Lakers, if they can draft Bronny, they're going to draft Bronny. I think everyone knows that LeBron wants Bronny in LA. I don't think that's a real surprise, right? But LeBron has talked lately about, and Rich Paul in particular has talked about how, LeBron kind of just staying out of everything, right? He doesn't want to get involved. Whatever happens with Bronny, right? The coaching thing, right? You hear, he's not involved with the coaching. JJ Redick, that's nothing, it's not like he doesn't care. He doesn't want to hear about it. No, do what you want to do. Build around Anthony Davis. That's the focus. That's the goal. And all of us are just kind of standing around like, I don't buy it, right? Because it's like, okay, so you're telling me that you don't want any type of know-how about who the coach is with the players. Like, you just want to stay out of it completely. You're just going to re-sign and sign. Like, there's no way that LeBron... Now, is LeBron the be-all, end-all? Is he the deciding factor? I don't necessarily think so. But I would be a little shocked if LeBron really wasn't in any type of conversation. If they weren't running by things with him, right? So it's funny because, like, LeBron's whole message and Rich Paul, what he's trying to put out is that, hey, LeBron's just chilling, right? LeBron doesn't care. LeBron isn't pushing anything. LeBron isn't telling the Lakers what to do, right? Lead GM is retired. Well, Stephen A. Smith came out and basically said LeBron's lying is essentially what it is. So Stephen A. Smith called these reports and narratives absolutely true and said that James is pulling for the two to happen. LeBron James is trying to get the Los Angeles Lakers to draft Bronny James with the second-round pick. Stephen A. said on the Stephen A. Smith Show, he'd also like for JJ Redick to be his next head coach. Now, that doesn't mean the Lakers want JJ Redick. It doesn't mean they don't. But it's all over the news about him being a candidate for the Lakers job. So Stephen A. Smith is basically saying, like, hey, yeah, the whole LeBron doesn't want to be involved, right? All that. Now, LeBron's pushing for the Lakers to draft Bronny and also pushing for JJ Redick, right? He also added, it's an absolutely true. He's one of many. They haven't made a finite decision about anybody yet, but LeBron has. That's the guy he wants, which would kind of explain why they're doing a basketball podcast together. I'm just guessing on that point, but it makes sense. So he's talking about how, he's guessing that that's part of the reason why him and LeBron teamed up to do the podcast because, they've had these talks about him being the head coach. Now, I don't think that that's why they did the podcast. If I'm being honest, I think Stephen A. is wrong in that regard. That's my thoughts. I think that they're doing the podcast because it makes sense to do a podcast. It's just the world we're in now. I mean, you're basically listening to a podcast, right? It's what everybody's doing. LeBron, get in the podcast space. He has his own productions. He has his own products. So does JJ Redick, right? Like, so this isn't like, these two have done nothing else and now all of a sudden they just randomly come together. And this happened long before there was even talks about, Darvin Ham, or before we knew Darvin Ham was getting fired, and also before we knew that JJ Redick even wanted to be a head coach or was a candidate to be a head coach. So I don't really buy that, but everything else, right? Like, again, Stephen A's kind of snitching here and throwing and basically saying like the talks that Rich Paul basically said, it's not true, right? That essentially, no, LeBron is pushing this. LeBron is trying to get the Lakers to draft Bronny and try to hire JJ Redick. Now, here's the thing in that regard. So obviously with JJ Redick, I've talked about how I'm all for Redick. I think he has the basketball mind. I think when you're looking at a checklist of all the things you want from your head coach, I think JJ Redick checks pretty much all the boxes except for how does he handle the behind the scenes stuff when it comes to head coach, right? Because there's more to head coaching than just the X's and O's and being an execute on the court. I think he'll be fine as far as like managing the game and all that stuff, right? I think more so it's important to put a proper just bench, like hive mind type coaching staff around him. You get an experienced coach, you see them already looking to bring in like a James Borrego or Scott Brooks or, a little bit of experience, right? I think you need to put a little experience on the bench, get some, just minds and guys that have kind of been there as a head coach to kind of help guide, make things easier for JJ Redick. The Lakers, I think, based on the information that we have, I think that they were going to hire JJ Redick regardless. I think it just makes it easier because LeBron wants him, right? So I don't doubt, like I wouldn't be shocked if JJ got on the Lakers' radar because of LeBron, right? Like that makes sense. But the Lakers seem to like JJ Redick because of nothing to do with LeBron. They like JJ Redick because they think he's the guy that can be the head coach for the next 15, 20 years, right? It's what I've talked about, right? Like they look at JJ Redick as they compared him to like a Pat Riley. I've talked about him as like Greg Popovich, not in the accolades, not in the coaching pedigree sense, right? Because we don't know what JJ Redick will be as a head coach. I mean, in the longevity, right? You got your head coach that now you have for the next 20 years, right? Even when LeBron's gone, even when Anthony Davis is gone, even when all these guys are gone, you'll still have JJ Redick, right? He becomes the Eric Spoelstra, the Ty Lue, and look, I do think JJ Redick has the potential to be a very good head coach in this league, right? Like a lot of people are just really immediately willing to dismiss him, and I just don't think you can. We've seen plenty of head coaches in their first year be great, right? I mean, almost all of the top 5 head coaches in the league right now were all other things and weren't assistants or head coaches, right? Like, you look at even like Steve Kerr was like a failed GM and a broadcaster before he became a head coach. Eric Spoelstra was in the film room, right? Like Ty Lue was just like out chilling. Like there's a lot of guys in this league that became first-year head coaches. Ty Lue replaced David Blatt, won a championship right in his first year. So I'm not willing to just immediately write off JJ Redick. I think JJ Redick is going to be the head coach. I think LeBron does have some pull in that regard, but I don't think they're hiring JJ Redick solely because that's what LeBron wants. Because they were going to do that, they would have hired Ty Lue back then, right? I think that they're considering hiring JJ Redick because they actually like JJ Redick and they think he's the answer long term, right? And I think that they understand, like, hey, we can't make the same mistake we made with Darvin Ham, which was we let Darvin Ham pick his coach staff. Because originally with Darvin Ham, they were looking for an experienced head coach to come on the bench and help guide Darvin Ham. And then Darvin Ham wanted to pick his own staff, so he said, okay, fine, we'll let you pick your own staff. And then he picked his own staff, and we saw the struggles, and we saw how that ended. So I think this time they're looking at it as like, well, at least Darvin Ham had an assistant experience. JJ has no experience, right? So we need to get him some experience on that bench. And I think that is in that regard. But just in general, right? It's just, it's kind of funny because, like, again, Stephen A isn't saying anything that I think is far-fetched. Like, it does sound a little opinion-based, right? Like, and like you said, he even talks about how, I believe this, blah, blah, blah. And, but again, it's all stuff that he clearly, that we all kind of are like, yeah, like LeBron wants Bronny on the lake. Like if you ask LeBron, hey, Bron, do you want the Lakers to draft Bronny? Of course his answer is going to be like, well, yeah, duh. Like, if Bronny's there at 55 or if the Lakers move up or whatever happens, right? Like, if that happens, if they can draft Bronny, they're going to draft Bronny. And again, like, these are two things that I think the Lakers do regardless. Like, I think the Lakers draft Bronny regardless, even if LeBron isn't pushing, even if LeBron's like, hey, you know, if you don't want to draft him, you don't have to draft him. I still think that the Lakers would draft him just to, again, appease and keep LeBron happy. Right? Like, again, the Lakers have a history of those kinds of things, right? The Lakers have a history of, like, trying to keep their stars happy. And I actually like the idea of the Lakers bringing in Bronny. I know some people aren't, but I just think, like, one, Bronny has shown some promise. And he has his dad's athleticism. He has his dad's IQ. He has his dad's playmaking. He's a better shooter than his dad was coming in, right? And if you can get Bronny on the team with LeBron for the next, let's say, 3 years, and then LeBron sails off to the sunset, Bronny's going to get 3 years of development with his dad. And now some people might be saying, well, you don't think he works? Yeah, but it's the big difference when LeBron's got to go to work and he's not able to really sit there and spend hours a day and, 24/7, 365. And Bronny's not able to mask or shadow LeBron during his workouts and stuff. It's another thing when you're on the same team and you're using the same facility and you're constantly together and in practices and workouts and all in training and film and all this stuff. You don't think LeBron will be able to sit there and mold Bronny into an excellent player? I mean, look at the strides Rui took. I know Rui was a disappointment in the playoffs, but he was excellent this season. He played out of position pretty much all season. And you saw the improvements because he shadowed LeBron all year. Now, what do you think LeBron's going to do with his son when he's able to just work with him constantly? Now, I'm not saying Bronny's going to be a superstar or even an all-star or anything like that, but you don't necessarily need that. Obviously, in a perfect world, he becomes, top point guard in the league. But he already has the NBA level defense. So right off the bat, defensively, I think he'll be great. But even if he just becomes like, a Derek White or a Drew Holiday, like that's perfect, right? Like those guys are in the finals right now. You don't obviously you want as many stars as you can get, but if you can just get, you still need the blue chip role guys, right? Even if he becomes a fringe all-star, right? Where he's like not quite an all-star, but like if he was in the East, maybe be an all-star type thing. Like even if he just gets like that, I think that'd be great. But I don't know. I just thought it was funny. Like Stephen A. is just like putting LeBron's business out there. I mean, that's his job, obviously. Again, this isn't like criticizing Stephen A., but it's just funny that like all the conversation has been this, that, and the other. And then Stephen A. is like, nah, like none of that's true. Like LeBron's fully trying to coerce the Lakers into drafting Bronny and hiring JJ. But again, it's all stuff we know. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about this. I just thought this was funny. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts and opinions. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. It's me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.